Okay, in this video, you are going to go through and we're going to talk about how to model a problem algebraically, which essentially means how do you take a problem, a written problem, and put it in, write it as an equation and solve it. Okay, so to start with, I'm not going to worry about like how I want you to communicate it. I just want you to solve this problem. Okay, hopefully now that you got that out of the way, we can focus on the communication part of it, because the focus today isn't the answer, it's how you communicate and how you get there. So there's 4 steps that I'm going to want you to follow. Defining a variable, writing an equation, solving that equation, and then writing our answer in a meaningful way. So let's go through and do an example that uses these 4 steps. So it's the same problem that you did at the beginning. So what is it going to look like if you go through this 4-step process? Well, the first thing is defining a variable. So I'm going to be using W because what is being asked for is the number of weeks. So W is equal to, I'm going to say, and I'm not going to just say weeks. I'm going to be specific, weeks until you have $500 remaining. Now the second part is writing your equation. Now on this one, we want to model the problem. So modeling means translating it. So I'm going to go back up to the beginning. So I started with $1,250. So that's going to be the first thing that I write down. I start with $1,250, and then I'm spending $25 each week. So that my amount is going to be going down. So I'm going to subtract $25 times however many weeks this is going to take. And I've just defined what weeks is up above. And I want to know eventually how long until I've got $500 remaining. So when is this going to equal $500? Okay, now that you've got your equation, now I just go through and solve it using my inverse operations just like we've been practicing. So I'm going to minus 1250 on both sides. Left with negative 25W equals negative 75, divide by negative 25. Oh, sorry, that should be negative 750. And W is equal to, I believe that is 30, if I'm doing my mental math correctly there. So that is my answer, okay? So that's the third step right there. I still need to go through and write my answer in a meaningful way. So that means putting it into a sentence. Okay, so I would say, it takes 30 weeks until I have, $500 left. And the wording, it's up to you, but it should read something like that. Okay, so that's what the process would look like. This is what it looks like all laid out. But if you really want to have like really clear communication, you include annotations as well, which you see there. I've kind of put little notes into my equation so the person reading it knows exactly what those numbers represent. And that gets really important when you get to a more complicated problem. All right, so let's try one kind of together. Okay. Similar problem. I want you to first go through and read that and then define your variable. Okay, so the variable, I said to use the letter T in this problem. So the way I defined it was T is the time he was training to start with originally. Okay. Second step, go through and write an equation. All right, so when you went through and wrote that equation, let me just go through and show you what I did here, how I translated it. I started increasing the amount of time I spend training. So I don't know what I'm starting with, so I'm just going to put T right there. But I first add an extra 10 minutes, so that's going to be T plus 10 each day. And then it says after a few weeks, he decided there wasn't enough, that I hadn't been training enough, and so I doubled the time. So I have to take that amount, my time plus 10, and double it. So I'm going to put that in brackets and multiply it by 2. And I could put the 2 in the front too. It doesn't really matter where you put that. So after I do that, add 10 minutes and then double it, okay, I'm going to be left with, I'm going to be training for 1 hour. Now you don't want to go equals 1 because 1 is in hours, and up here I'm talking about previously the number of minutes. So I need to make sure I'm using the same units. So I'm going to go ahead and put in 60 for the number of minutes. So that would be my equation that I work with. All right, third step, I'd like you to go through and solve that equation, showing all your inverse operations. Okay, so what you should have ended up with is something that looks like, well, actually, I'm not going to show you that yet. Yeah, I'm going to show it to you. Something that looks something like that, where you get down to t equals 20. And then the last thing is writing your answer in a meaningful way. So I went ahead and put that down. Before increasing his training, Mr. Windust was training 20 minutes per day. Lastly, I'd like you to go through and do this whole problem using the 4 steps entirely on your own. Okay? If you did that correctly, you should have something that looks very closely like the answer in blue.